We have Lauren Grand, who's joined us from the Extension Service. I hope folks are familiar with the Extension Service. They provide a lot of really useful information to people with all kinds of different things dealing with the natural environment, whether it's home gardeners or farmers or woodland owners, members of industry, and so on, that Lauren works with as the forester. Before she became the Extension Forester, she worked as a wood products consultant for Vina Wood, and as a research assistant with Fire Ecology Labs at UC Berkeley. I asked her what she's been up to lately out in the woods, and she said she's been enjoying foraging for mushrooms and fiddleheads and found some chanterelles in the fall, and that's a new hobby for her. So, Lauren Grand.
Hi, thanks so much for having me today. Just a quick reminder, here in my role as an OXU Extension representative and agent, I'm here to talk to you today about all the appropriate tools that are available to landowners as they decide what they're going to do to manage forests. And so I'm going to frame a lot of my answers in that regard, including tools with their impacts and benefits. So the overarching concept of sustainability is being able to use a resource that meets your needs today without compromising the future of that resource. However, this concept is complicated by the diversity of the types of forests that we have, the objectives of different landowners, the interests of the decision makers, and the community values that we live in. And even the time scale that we're looking at also complicates things a little bit. So for this reason, I think it's important to think about sustainability as a continuum as we think about what we want to sustain and to what time scale. And as you imagine, that would require a lot of balancing of impacts and benefits of each of the resources that are that we use as we manage forests, or lack of managing of forests. So for example, if you have trees that have root rot, you may cut trees to remove a disease, which would enable hardwoods to grow, which would provide a habitat quality. But removing trees that have root rot might remove a different type of habitat. So there's a positive and a benefit to some of the management decisions that you make, and there's always a trade-off to consider. So instead of telling you what I believe sustainability is, I'm going to talk a little bit about some common tools in which scientists have tried to measure sustainability, and let you decide which ones you think are beneficial tools to measure sustainability. They include resilience to disturbance, so how well a forest can respond to diseases, pests, fires, human activities, how stable a community is, maintaining forests as forests and not converting them to other land use, biodiversity of plants and animals, biodiversity of their habitats, as well as biodiversity of their genetic pools, clean water, protecting our soils, growing more than you take for both timber products and non-timber products, so things like mushrooms and fiddleheads, and then also considering carbon storage and carbon sequestration. So I just wanted to bring those about for things for you to think about as some of the other members of the panel talk about what their opinions of sustainability are. Thank you for having me today.
Next, we'll have Todd Payne. Todd is the CEO of the Seneca family of companies. That consists of 4 different companies. They're producing quite a lot of board feet of lumber every year and managing over 170,000 acres of timberland. He has been working with that company for over 30 years, has worked his way up through the company. And Todd is also the proud parent of a couple of kids that are out of school now and an adorable 7-month-old bulldog puppy. Thanks, Todd, for being willing to come and join us today.
You bet. Well, thank you. The first thing I want to do is thank GreenLane for their mission and their support for sustainability, and really to their willingness to host this event today, centered around forestry. They're a great organization that is open to companies that are at all different points along the sustainability spectrum. Today's event is a great opportunity to hear from a very diverse group of panelists up here. And I'm encouraged by today's attendance and your willingness to listen, learn, and hopefully find some common ground as we go through this forum. Sustainability centered around forestry, and what does it mean to me, or what does it mean to Seneca? First, I think sustainability really comes in different shapes and sizes, both big and small. It could be as simple as recycling your wood or your food waste at home, all the way up to supplying or consuming renewable, sustainable forest products. But how do you measure sustainability? And as I approached that question, I found that sustainability really is a practice. It's not an end result. And you might call it a journey. So bear with me. I'm going to try to explain that journey in the context of Seneca and an overview of our three companies. First is Seneca Jones Timber Company. We own and manage 170,000 acres of sustainably managed forests. These lands are managed for more than just the growing and harvesting of trees. We manage our lands for fish, wildlife, soils, water, clean air, and then most importantly, recreation. And these lands are managed on a sustained yield basis, which means we do not cut any more than we grow. In fact, I'm happy to share with you that we have 92% more timber today than we did in 1992 on the same acreage. From a reforestation perspective, we're planting on average about 1.4 million seedlings every year, up to 7 different species, although primarily Douglas fir. Seneca Sawmill Company, this is the company that manages our 4 sawmills. We use state-of-the-art technology to manufacture sustainable, renewable, carbon-friendly building products in the form of lumber. Lumber that will be used to build 1.3 million homes in 2018. Each of our sawmills is designed to utilize a different portion of the tree and to be made into different products such as dimension lumber, stud lumbers, and chips for the pulp and paper industry. What's unique about Seneca and their site here in Eugene is we have the capability to bring the tree into one site and utilize it 100%, whether it's in the form of solid sawn wood products or what we call byproducts, that being chips, shavings, sawdust, and bark. And a portion of those byproducts are sold to the open market for higher and better use. We also consume a portion of those byproducts internally in our renewable energy facility. That company is called Seneca Sustainable Energy. It was built and came into commercial operation in April of 2011. Basically, we're creating renewable power from a single fuel source, that being wood biomass. Our main fuel source, again, is bark, sawdust, and shavings from our sawmills, as well as forest biomass from our timberlands. We produce enough electricity to provide energy for up to 13,000 homes on an annual basis here in Eugene. And cogen oftentimes is a term you'll hear referred to, and that just means we're creating 2 power sources from a single fuel source, the power being electricity as well as thermal energy, i.e. steam, for our dry kilns. What's unique to us is our permit that was provided to give us the ability to run the plant was very restrictive, and we are not allowed to burn anything that's painted, stained, has glues and resins in it. So everything coming into our plant is considered organic, and the ash byproduct, which is a byproduct of burning wood, is considered an organic product, and we market that to a agricultural company up the road, and they put it on their fields in August and September when they go to till them back under as a form of soil nutrient. We also considered a firm power source, which is very important when you look at the other renewables, wind and solar, because you have to be able to fill in those peaks and valleys when the wind's not blowing and the sun's not shining. We employ approximately 450 environmentally conscious employees who recognize and promote the renewable and sustainable aspects of the products they help create, whether it be trees, lumber, or electricity. Oregon is the #1 producing lumber state in the nation. Lane County is the leading lumber producer in Oregon. Real quickly, in conclusion, I hope we can continue to learn, adapt, and partner, improving our sustainable practices and products. Our membership at GreenLane is one way of doing that. We look at it as an opportunity to share who we are and what we do and to learn from others. Innovation, societal demands, and we'll direct our path forward, all in the context of sustainability. I can see I'm out of time, so I'm going to turn it over to the next panelist.
Thank you. Next we'll have Chandra LeGue. Did I get it right? Okay. Chandra is the Western Oregon Field Coordinator for Oregon Wild. She's been working with them since 2003. She works on policy and law to protect and restore Oregon's forests and watersheds, particularly on public lands, but Oregon Wild also does some work, I found out, with private lands as well, and works on native wildlife recovery and has various different projects and programs. Chandra is working on a book about hiking in Oregon's remaining forests, and so as research Last year, she hiked over 400 miles to be like, learning everything she could to put into that book that's going to come out in a couple of years. So, Chandra.
Thank you. So as Tree mentioned, Oregon Wild, and I personally have spent, Oregon Wild has spent most of its 44-year history, not all of my 40-year history, on working on public forest management policies. And this is in large part because the public gets to say in how public lands are managed. It is our values that help inform policy and management, which has shifted over time, including what we think about sustainability. And we tended not to get much involved on private lands, which is primarily the topic of conversation today. But it became obvious that the things that we at Oregon Wild and so many Oregonians care about for the health and well-being of our communities and our planet cross ownership boundaries to the other nearly half of Oregon's forests, and that reforming private forest practices rules to protect our state's water, wildlife, and future climate is essential to our mission. And so we've added that to our work. So I'm sorry to disappoint, but I'm also not going to define sustainable forestry today. Definitions of sustainability and sustainable practices are most definitely informed by what information you're exposed to and filtered and defined by your belief system. And so I will simply give you some things to think about that can help inform your definition and based on my and Oregon Wild's belief system. So in our way of thinking, forests provide far more than just wood products. So sustainable management to us is about ensuring far more than wood supply and a sustainable wood supply as it's often talked about. It's about sustaining healthy, functional forest ecosystems and watersheds that store carbon, filter water, provide homes for wildlife, provide recreation for all of us, and help build a livable climate for us. And we need that vital life support system and the biodiversity that these forests sustain, not just for their own sake, which is important, but also for the continued existence of human communities. So to take the next logical step, we need to look at whether past and current forest management sustains these functional forest ecosystems and watersheds. And we believe the answer is no. One of the key things to understand and take away from an exercise about thinking about forest management is the historical context of today's forests. So we've taken a dynamic forest ecosystem that once covered half of Oregon, and we changed it dramatically in just the past 150 years through extensive logging and fire suppression. Where we once had forests that contained a diversity of tree species of different ages and with shrubs and flowers, snags and downwood, and a variety of disturbance types from small windstorms to massive fires, we today have converted about 3/4 of those forests to simplified monoculture plantations that are nearly devoid of natural structure, any diversity of plants and tree species, and where the primary disturbance is clear cutting every 40 to 60 years. The vast majority of today's forests can no longer perform the vital ecosystem services and functions of storing carbon, filtering water, and providing homes to all manner of animal life. Modern forestry practices that perpetuate this shift from a natural forest ecosystem to plantation-based management has led us to a place where salmon and ancient forest-dependent wildlife are in danger of going extinct, where our streams are overheated and oversimplified, where roads fragment nearly every square mile of land, and where forests are not allowed to fulfill their carbon storage potential. These costs dramatically outweigh the short-term benefits of any practice or industry, and so I don't think of that as being sustainable. Looking to the future, what changes must be made to get us closer to the type of sustainable forest we envision? Well, first we need to continue to protect and restore our remaining unlogged forests and work on restoring forest ecosystems and watersheds. Primarily on public land is where this is happening today, and Oregon Wild is fully supportive of that. That can mean active management, such as actively placing wood back into streams for salmon habitat, or thinning plantations to add diversity. On private land, we would like to see laws modernized to reflect the need for protecting headwater streams, moving away from aerial spraying of herbicides, moving towards practices like much longer harvest rotations, that increase carbon stores instead of contributing to carbon emissions as they do today. In the current context of forest management, where Oregon's laws allow and even encourage these, in my mind, unsustainable practices, we have a long way to go.
Thanks, Chandra. And finally, we have Mark Miller. Mark Miller is a senior forester with Trout Mountain Forestry. Trout Mountain Forestry works with small to medium-sized woodlots, and so I said, what does small to medium-sized woodlots mean in this context? And he said it could be anything from 20 acres to about 8,000 acres. Some private clients, some municipal clients, government clients as well. So he's been doing that for upwards of 30 years and brings a lot of perspective to it. Thanks for joining us today, Mark Miller.
Thanks, Tree. I'm really happy to be here today. I was glad to be invited, and I'll tell you a little bit about Trout Mountain and the kind of work that we do and our perspectives on sustainability. We are a small group of 6 foresters in Corvallis and in Portland, working throughout Western Oregon. And we consider ourselves a sustainable business. We are certified resource managers under the Forest Stewardship Council program. Some of you may have heard of that. If you haven't, it's a voluntary third-party audit-based assessment of environmental, economic, and social sustainability of forest management operations. And we were the first resource manager certified under that FSC program more than 20 years ago, and we have a really extensive set of standards under that FSC program that we work with. We work with a variety of different forest land owners. We work a lot with family forest lands, small tracts that may be part of a home site or a farm, larger family legacy pieces, or forest investments. We work with municipalities, managing some open space lands here with the city of Eugene. We manage municipal watershed properties with the city of Corvallis and a half dozen other communities. We manage for some camps, land trusts, different community or religious groups. About 50,000 acres, 100 different properties. So not a big piece of the forest picture in Oregon, but a diverse set of owners with really a diverse set of objectives. Most of our owners share interest in forest health. They share interests in improving the quality and the value of their forests and their forest assets. And they're interested in habitat and whether that's just encouraging different bird or animal species or doing full-scale restoration type projects. And all of our owners are also interested in generating income. It may not be the most important goal, but it is a goal for all of our owners. I'd like you to recognize that there's a lot of different types of forest owners in the state, and their objectives vary quite a bit. There's public forests, of course, federal and state and in county lands that often have a legislative mandate to protect habitat for public access or recreation, and many times to produce revenue as well. There's forest industry lands that are important for providing resource for the mills. There's, over the last 20 years, been increasingly forest investors. These would be insurance companies, pension funds, and other sorts of groups that own an increasingly large part of Oregon forests, and they have a mandate to provide returns or provide stability in those diverse portfolios. There's other large family ownerships that may not own mills, and all of these groups, their objectives may share a lot, but they may be different hierarchy of objectives. So you know, what does sustainability in a forestry context mean? You know, my basics of that are really first off to protect and maintain soils and soil productivity, to protect public resource values, things like water quality, critical wildlife habitat, and to ensure that what you're harvesting is less than what's growing there. You know, beyond that, I think there's a lot of different forest practices that can be used to meet objectives, and well, we're going to talk more about that, I think. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark.